Hey, welcome in. Happy solstice. Blessed solstice. Okay, off to a great start. How's it going, false reality check? Okay, my friends, I have something special for you guys today. In gratitude for all of the support over the last few years, and in celebration of the solstice, I want to offer free readings today. So if you would like a tarot reading or a quick transit astrology reading, let me know. I'm down. I'm only here for a couple of hours, so it's a limited time offer. But anybody you know that you think might need a quick little reading or might want a quick little reading, let them know I'm here. Let's do this. So I've got some water, I've got some coffee, I've got some incense going. Hopefully my sound is okay. My mic stand is busted, so I can't use my fancy mic, but that's okay. We've got the laptop mic going. Yeah, so I'm just going to start shuffling my cards, and we could talk a little bit about solstice stuff. Absolutely, Matthew. I think I've looked at your chart before, but drop your birth data in the chat there, and I'll pull that up. We can do that. So it's pretty much going to be like first come, first serve, and hopefully I don't get overwhelmed, but that's okay. And yeah, if you feel like you want to donate, by all means, please do so. But if you don't have the means to, don't worry about it. The whole point of today is just me offering back to you some of the love and the generosity that you've given me. So, yeah, drop your data. False reality check. Oh, okay, yes. How's it going, Brenda? Okay, while I'm waiting for Matthew, I'm going to open up another window here. Oops. Nope. There we go. Open up another window here so I can actually pull out my charts. Okay. So I'm going to pull a couple cards for false reality check while I'm waiting for you, Matthew, and then we'll do a transit reading for you. So what do the beautiful people of FRC need to hear most right now? Okay, I like that. All right, my dear. So for you, I actually pulled the Knight of Cups. And I took a little peek underneath the deck and actually see the Knight of Pentacles as well. There is an overwhelming energy of new growth and new abundance coming in. I really love that. So I feel like the Knight of Cups is asking you to remember to celebrate. I mean, what a good weekend and a good time for exactly that. The Knight of Cups tells me that it is absolutely a time to celebrate. It is a time to pour out the gratitude that the gratitude and the love that you are also receiving from those that are around you. I feel like the Knight of Cups is also about like seeking fun and joy. There's definitely the seeking after pleasure aspect. So even though you are working on growing some new beans and all of the crazy stuff at the farm that goes on every single year, remember to also have fun with it. So maybe this weekend, take a little bit of time for play. I'm sure you play, but find a little bit more time for play, and remember that games and fun and pleasure seeking and taking care of the artful side of life is just as important as the practical side, the practical 3D, okay, we got to eat now side. So I think it'll be about striking a balance and being open to receiving as well as giving. So, okay, cool. I like that. Okay, Matthew, I need your birth data. In the meantime, Kelly, I can open your chart. Yeah, I'm gonna show it on screen, so hold on. Let me just grab it. Ah, good. Good. Okay, so January 17th. 57. Oh, did you drop it already in here? Oh, that's weird. It must have filtered it out. Okay, 1 second. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Yeah, for whatever reason, I didn't see it on my side of things, but there it is. I got it. Okay, April 1st. 16. Cool. All right. 15. I remember your chart. Just give me a second, guys. Yeah, okay. Transit. All right. All right, off the cuff transit reading. Okay, so Matthew. All right. So just give me a quick minute to kind of absorb what's going on. Okay, so right off the bat, biggest thing that I'm seeing right this second would actually be the Mars retrograde that is now aspecting your natal Mars for the second time. So there will be one more transit as it's going back forward through these degrees. But that's really interesting. It's applying right now to a square. So that's really, that's a potent symbol at the moment. Let me just kind of gather a couple pieces of data before I put it together. And the solstice. And then, of course, Uranus going over your moon. That's a big one. And Pluto applying to square Mars as well. All right, so there's a really big focus on Mars in the 9th at the moment. Okay, so Mars in the 9th house seems to be under quite a bit of pressure from both the transiting Mars and the upcoming aspect from Pluto. So in the next few months, I would say, there seems to be this kind of extra kind of grind between okay, well, are these beliefs, ninth house, really continuing to serve me, or is there some kind of action that I need to start taking around those beliefs so that it actually assists me and helps with both my mental and my physical health? Since Mars is in exile in the ninth, I remember from the last time I pulled up your chart that there was quite a bit going on with like where you were living and a whole bunch of different kind of challenges that you were facing at the time. The reality is that those challenges are not fully complete yet. There's more to go. And I hate being the bearer of that kind of news, but Mars under that kind of a really intense aspect and square, that's the flavor of it. I do see, like with the retrograde, the nice thing about the Mars retrograde in particular is that this is likely to be some kind of pattern that's come up before in the past, but due to the nature of reversals with retrogrades, I can see that like once Mars turns direct in February in Cancer and then comes back out of Cancer over top of those degrees again, you're likely to see the resolution. So March, April of next year. So springtime next year, as Mars is coming back over those degrees, some kind of challenge that you're facing right now with feeling either in exile or like something that you're trying to accomplish and put out to the world. Those are other ninth house themes. Perhaps those challenges are able to like unwind themselves, or you find some kind of course of action springtime of next year that really helps to kind of resolve and bring them to fruition, if that makes sense. This is likely to be an ongoing theme with Pluto now kind of aspecting that Mars. So with the Pluto aspect in particular, that is going to be a much more long and drawn out and more subtle energy. So take that and keep that in mind as you're dealing with like this winter and the next spring with all the different Martian themes coming up, that it speaks to a much more subtle transformation that's going on underneath the surface. So Mars rules the 3rd and 8th. Just going to check in with the chat. Okay. So something else I would say about that is since your natal placement of Mars speaks to 3rd house themes and 8th house themes, I would say that there's likely to be some kind of changes and transitions occurring in regards to either how you're moving around or what you're learning right now, or even what is owed to you and what you owe to other people, since that's an 8th house theme. So that might play out as like how does it work out for you, or how does it land for you when you realize that something is owed to you or you owe someone else? And actually, I seem to recall a conversation that we had last time about not wanting to charge for services or wanting to offer things for free, and the whole philosophy around all of that. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if that the core philosophy around that exact conversation is what's coming up, since we are talking about the 8th house lord in the 9th. So what is owed to you karmically, and what do you believe about those things? And maybe the transition from Mars, or sorry, the aspect from Mars, is really like bringing to the forefront again a need to reevaluate your philosophy around this. And then the square from Pluto will be the longer term story that plays out over the next year, of how those things shift and change. Yeah, so that's kind of like the biggest keys that I see kind of playing out with that Mars. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so thank you, Matthew. All right, I believe. Okay, Kelly. Kelly, I'm going to pull yours up next. Do you have any specific question? I mean, I can do the same thing that I did for Matthew and just see like what pops up as the most relevant thing in the chart. But if you have a question, that works too. Cool. I'm glad. Yeah, springtime, there will be so many big changes happening spring and summer of next year that I wouldn't be surprised if everybody's life is totally different. So springtime will be a big one. Okay. All right. Kelly, I'm pulling yours up. So January 17th. 57. Okay. 12:05 a.m. Rockford. Oh, I just clicked the wrong button. Kick me out. Hold on 1 second, guys. Sorry. Okay, Kelly, does Libra rising sound correct? Let me know. Just gonna go through and quickly star some comments. Joseph, good to see you, buddy. Okay, cool. Okay, Kelly, just give me a second here to absorb. Okay. Hold up. That is very powerful. Those are very loud planets. So when you have a planet conjunct an angle like that, it speaks very loudly. So that is really fascinating. I would have some really I would have some questions for you. But anyway, okay. So all right, so what is speaking most loudly right now for Kelly? I mean, the node on Jupiter is no joke. That's quite loud. How are you feeling now that Pluto has moved off of your sun? Like, did you notice that ingress from Pluto moving away from Capricorn? I feel like I also have a late Capricorn placement, and I feel like it was tangible, like a weight was lifted, and I could like breathe a sigh of relief. Okay, so Mars station retrograde next to your moon, then it'll cross over your MC when it gets back into Cancer and oppose the sun. That is something we could speak to, or the node on your Jupiter would be a big one. I guess, would you say that right now, so I'll ask this because that'll help me narrow it down. Would you say that right now you're in more of a transition in regards to your career and your network, like your wider social network? Or would you say that your identity and body and health is more in flux? And like maybe both, so I just kind of have to choose which one. Lift and oppression, totally 100%. Yeah, that's hard to say because there's two really prominent things that I see happening right now in your chart. I mean, the first thing that's most obvious is you just went through some really intense eclipse cycles in your first and seventh house, which is always a big deal. Always changes things for better or worse. Eclipses landing in the first and seventh house, like this is such a sensitive axis because this is literally your body, your physical vessel, your personality, your life path, the archetype that you're learning to embody in this lifetime, and your relationships, your most close one-on-one relationships. So the eclipses rolling through here would have been quite significant. And now with Jupiter right on, sorry, not transiting Jupiter, the transiting node being right on top of your Jupiter, I could see that as being pretty significant. So the south node in general brings a decrease in energy. It's, if you pay attention to Vedic astrology, which is probably my favorite interpretation of the nodes, the south node is the tail of the dragon. It's a decapitated dragon. The head is Rahu. The head is over here in the seventh house. So the tail of the dragon is about releasing and letting go and ultimately spiritualizing a thing. It is not about the 3D physical incarnation side of things. It's about the spiritual side of things. So us in our 3D vessels struggle significantly sometimes with K2 and with the energies of K2. So when you have the south node transiting over a planet like that, like Jupiter in the first house, I could see that bringing up some pretty significant bodily concerns. Jupiter in the first house speaks to, I mean, on one level, your vitality. And it's a retrograde Jupiter, so that's a whole nother layer of stuff. But it can also bring about like old situations come up for like completion. Old karmic ties, you could say, come up for completion. So that is like an entire conversation, just Jupiter and just how the south node has affected Jupiter. So yeah, that's one way we could take this. The other way would be talking about that Mars retrograde over the 10th MC. Identity health. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So here's the thing, Jupiter. So if we look at just your birth chart, Jupiter being placed in the first house speaks to your health, but it also rules the sixth house of obstacles and disease and therefore healing. So Jupiter in the first house, in this context, I mean, on one hand, Jupiter is considered the greater benefic. It is a planet of abundance and luck and wealth, and it's called the guru in Vedic astrology. It is all about the philosophy and the unifying principles and all these really beautiful sounding themes. It is also actually about structure. You think Saturn structure, but actually Jupiter structure. So having Jupiter retrograde in the first house brings about this symbolism of there being reversals and like things where you have to pay more attention to in order to actually see the benefits of Jupiter, if that makes sense. With the South Node transiting over Jupiter, again, you have this symbolism of the tail of like a toilet flushing, basically, is one not very nice way, but a very real way of thinking about the South Node. So the South Node transiting over Jupiter, there's been this time, this transition period where a lot of things have probably come up where you've needed to pay really close attention to them in order to change serious habits. Sixth house deals with our habits around how you treat your body. First house, in order to, really help your health. I would actually say also that there's a significant amount of needing to come to terms with the fact that we are mortal. We live in flesh, and the flesh does eventually die and decay and like really not pleasant things. But that's the reality. And with that in mind, K2 isn't like K2 is not a death sentence. Don't get me wrong, it's not a death sentence, but it is asking you to come to terms with the fact that we're here for a finite amount of time and to make the most of that amount of time. I would also say that K2 transiting over that planet in the first house that rules the sixth, perhaps there is some extremely like alternative or spiritual method that you'll need to kind of incorporate into your routine, your daily routine for healing. Why alternative and spiritual? Well, we are speaking of K2. Now, the nice thing about this is, of course, with all transits, this too shall pass. K2 is a very temporary transit. The South Node will move through and finish with your first house. Not terribly long from now. It'll be moving into Virgo really quickly, like you can see right there. This is the mean node, so it's an average, but the mean node is at right on the second degree, which means it's almost done. So I kind of feel like this is a time period where exploring spirituality is really important. Exploring how to purge and cleanse is really important. Exploring how to ask for things from a higher power is really important. Those are kind of like really big themes that I could see coming up with the South Node passing over Jupiter. Old traumas. Fair enough. Yeah, I could see that. So exploring different modalities for how to actually release those traumas from the body would be a really good key piece to add into whatever you're already doing, whether it be through something like EMDR or a tapping technique or any other modality that works for you, because different things work for different people. But definitely look into that. I could also see like some kind of exploration of like past life stuff being potentially helpful, just for bringing about like an understanding of the underlying why certain things played out the way that they did. Sometimes that's helpful, sometimes it's not. It's like that'll be up to you to decide if that's a path that you want to go down. But yeah, play with those ideas. Okay. Hey, nice. Okay. Mace. I have not heard of Mace. I have not heard of that one. So that's cool. Yeah, and like I don't know anything about your situation, so if that is something that you want to explore, do it. Kind of. Yeah, one other thing that I would actually maybe suggest with Saturn transiting through the 6th house as well, because this is still, you've still got like another, I mean, summer, spring, summer of next year, Saturn will be moving out of your 6th and into the 7th. And that's going to be kind of another layer of pressure lifting off from health things in particular. So that is something to look forward to. And in the meantime, finding someone that can help you work through old traumas in a structured manner will be of assistance. Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. Dahansky, did you have a question for your tarot reading? I find it helpful if there's some kind of question or context to go with, because a single card can have 10,000 different meanings. Yeah, you're welcome, Kelly. All right. If you don't have a question, I'll just start talking. Which for me could be dangerous because I can just talk. Okay, fair enough. All right, nothing specific. So what does Dahansky need to hear most for this season? Oh, cool. Okay. All right, so the card that came out for you is actually the 6 of Pentacles, and underneath the deck is the 4 of Pentacles. So there seems to be a theme for you right now of trying to find and establish and hold on to physical stability, however that actually looks for you, whether it's literally through your financial life or through working with your property or your physical health. So with the 6 of Pentacles, we see a gentleman. I don't know why it keeps doing that. We see a gentleman offering a gift, right? He's being generous with his wealth. There is this idea with the 6 of Pentacles of something finally balancing out for you, whether it's something that you've been owed or something that you actually owe someone else. There's this balancing act that must be struck. Oftentimes it's speaking to some act of generosity or some act of you feeling like you need to be more generous, or the other, or you're trying to get something that you owe from somebody. I mean, without any more context, it's hard to say which direction it's going in. But underneath the deck with the 4 of Pentacles, so I actually see this card as a really powerful card. I hear some readers talking about like, oh, you're holding on too tight. I don't think that is it at all. I actually feel like this is the feelings that I get from the 4 of Pentacles is more about feeling like you're finally able to stand on your own and having this sense of, I accomplished this. It's a very, so the 4 of Pentacles, this is why, all right? The 4 of Pentacles, it actually speaks to the last decan of Capricorn. which is Sun in Capricorn. So it is about obtaining power and having a level of control and mastery that you've created over whether it be your health or your finances, whichever one works for you. I see that as like you're trying to establish this stability, and in being able to establish that stability, now you're finally at a point where either you can actually chase after something that is owed to you or offer that to somebody else. So that's kind of the read that I get with the 4 and the 6 of Pentacles. Is there anything else that kind of comes from that? Yeah. And that's the thing. That's really wise words. If you're not in a place to be able to help anybody else because you don't have stability, what are you doing? You're not actually helping anybody at that point. So there's a big difference between compassion and what they call blind compassion. You can be compassionate till the cows come home, but if you go so far to a point where you're hurting yourself, then you're not actually being compassionate anymore. You're actually harming yourself. So with that comment, what I would say is that the underlying need is to stabilize and not feel guilty for needing to stabilize. And interesting timing too, like with it being Christmas. So a lot of people, especially in the American culture, like we will go broke or go into debt out of this sense of like obligation and guilt for offering things to other people in the form of gifts, be it Christmas or food or whatever. And sometimes at like a great deficit, right? Like you will hear stories about people using credit cards in order to pay for Christmas gifts and then going into extreme debt and paying for it for the rest of the year, or longer if they really don't have their financial stuff together. So definitely don't do that. Definitely don't do that, and don't feel guilty about avoiding doing that. You know, if you can't afford it, don't fucking do it. Yeah. Okay. I think that's all that I need to say about that. Anthony, did you have any specific question? And if not, I can just see kind of what pops up as like the most pertinent thing in the chart and kind of go from there. But if you have something specific you wanted me to look at, I'm down. So 1150. Oakland, Cali, eh? You're welcome. Yes, I will add you to the queue. Fun. Also, what's up, PK? I saw you, but I was talking. Relationship. Okay. I will look at relationships. Okay. Of course, relationship. Damn, dude. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because we were born less than a month apart. So some of your chart is like identical to mine, but like flipped. So I get it. How was your Saturn return? Happy solstice. Okay, sorry. Focus. Okay, Anthony. Let me pull your chart up. So there's a lot to talk about. I guess so with the context of relationships, are you single right now? Are you dating? Have you married? Is it, are you dating and it's rocky, or are you dating and it feels too good to be true? Or are you single and struggling to find somebody? Or are you married and curious about what's going on with that? A little bit more context will help me kind of narrow it down. And an interesting wild few months. Okay. So dating. So how Moon and the node are placed here is a little bit confusing. They are in Capricorn. It's just there's no more space in Capricorn. So you have the good old outer planet plus Moon plus node. Cappy oh my gosh, stellium. And then the Venus Mars. Oh, wow. Okay, Venus. Sorry, just again a little bit confusing. That is in Cancer. Hold on, let me just absorb this for a second. So as a Leo rising, you just had a Mars return, and then Mars turned retrograde right on top of your Mars, opposing natal Saturn, and then scooting back into Cancer to oppose the Moon. Speaking of relationships, mine just got home. Pluto's just moved into the 7th house. Uranus has been dancing with your MC and will be moving into Gemini soon. Jupiter will be moving into the 12th house. Okay. On and off and rocky. Okay. What's up, Andy? All right. So, sorry for the mumbling. On and off with somebody. You know what? Fair enough. So here's the thing with the Mars retrograde. As a Leo rising, Mars turned retrograde in your first house. First house, of course, represents you, your body, after joining with your natal Mars. So you had a Mars return. Okay, so Mars return. Let's start there. Your natal Mars being in the first house during a Mars return, you're male, I'm assuming, with a name like Anthony. I could be wrong, but anyway, Mars return, first house for a male in Leo. I could see that being like a huge boost of confidence and like drive, right? But then Mars turned retrograde. As Mars turns retrograde, this tends to take whatever you were feeling in the area of Mars and completely reverse it. So for some people, that means that some people perform extremely well during a Mars retrograde, by the way. Joe Rogan started his podcast during a Mars retrograde. He's doing just fine. Some people thrive during the retrograde energy. Some people really do not. Generally speaking, it asks you to slow down Mars wants to hit the fucking gas pedal and go. Mars wants to achieve, wants to consume, wants to conquer, especially Mars and Leo, wants to conquer, wants to win, fight, fight, fight. But Mars retrograde is like, okay, you gained this ground. Now that you've gained this ground, you have to somehow defend it. But sometimes defending it and holding on to it aren't really the same thing. And in the context of relationships, that's not always the right answer. Totally depends. And when it, in the context of something like on again, off again, the Mars retrograde could be like, now there's all this doubt. Now you're not sure if chasing or being chased is the right move. Like, do I call? Do I not call? Is it too emotionally crazy? Or I don't have any context here, so I'm kind of just, I'm going off. But generally speaking, what you want to do basically while Mars is going retrograde through your first house is kind of take stock. What is it that you actually want? Establish that first. What is it you actually desire? Establish that. What are you willing to get those things? What are you willing to do to get those things? What are you willing to sacrifice to get those things? And what are you willing to kind of put up with and fight for? That's ultimately the context and the themes of the Mars retrograde. What are you willing to fight for? Because Mars turned retrograde pretty much exactly opposite your natal Saturn in the 7th house, the fundamental question of, is this relationship actually solid and stable enough, is absolutely going to come to the forefront. With Saturn in the 7th house natally, you need something that's solid. You need someone that is a little bit more mature, perhaps, has their shit together, has some kind of structured way of being. And actually, the Saturn retrograde symbolism in the 7th is really interesting. It could end up actually being somebody that has some kind of like disability or is literally older. Like, there's a bunch of different possibilities for how that symbolism could work out. But the Mars retrograde symbolism right opposite that is like, okay, is this actually what I need right now? Necessity. Is this actually going to serve me in the long term? That's Saturn. Is there enough glue to actually hold this together? And if not, like if it's not going to serve you in the long term, then that is something that you need to assess. Now, as Mars continues his retrograde journey back into the 12th house, turns direct, comes back over top of your Venus, another symbolism, another symbol of love. There's likely to be more kind of upsets and like moments of that on again, off again energy coming up. I would say this is the time period, this retrograde is the time period where you really want to decide if these are the patterns that you want to keep seeing play out, or if it's not something you want to really commit to, because Saturn is asking you if you really want to commit or not. Saturn in the 7th, and Mars came and triggered it and was like, all right, Saturn, let's go time. So do you want to commit? And as Mars is going through the retrograde, are these the themes that you want to continue to see going forward? So just some things to think about as far as relationships go. I could also see perhaps themes of like needing to like really establish strong boundaries, both within yourself and like in the context of relationships. Like, how much time are you willing to offer? How able are you to hold your own space and be your own person? is it a really enmeshed relationship, or is there like space between the two of you and plus the third entity of the relationship? Like, are those clearly defined or not? Those are some themes to kind of think about. Yeah. Yeah. Take time to slow down. Yeah, okay. those are the kind of like the main themes with the Mars retrograde for sure. So think about all that. Let me know how it landed. And yeah, I mean, without a little bit more context about like why is it off and on, it's hard for me to answer that any more than I did. So I hope that was helpful. Good luck. Oh, sorry. But unstar that. Joseph, I bet you're at a significant turning point. What's up, birthday twin? Okay, I forget what year you were born and the time. Like I have it saved, but I don't have it in front of me right now. If you wouldn't mind dropping your time and your year. It's like 80 something, but I don't remember. I'm sorry. And I know where. I know the day. Escondido. I don't remember the time. Boundaries are a big one, especially if you have motherfucking Saturn in an angular house, the 7th. Boundaries are so key. And with a retrograde Saturn, boundaries are going to be a little bit more challenging and difficult to set, but not impossible. So you fucking got this. 422. Okay, hell yeah, let's go. I love the beard, buddy. That's sick. Birthday twin, what's up? Hey girl, hey. Yeah, we're doing readings. We're doing live readings. I've got another hour and then I gotta call or quit. So first come, first serve. Let's go. Okay, just gonna go through the chat real quick and just make sure that I star anybody else that said yes, that they want one. PK, you'll be next after Joseph. And then things we should know. Fair enough. Okay, so I have Joseph, then PK, then things you should know, and then anybody else. Okay. Joseph. Oh, Jimmy. Okay. I got you. Got you, fam. Okay. So significant turning point. Yeah, it's been a bit since we talked. So let's pull up your chart here. So eclipses just rolled through your first house. Oh, Mars turned retrograde right on top of your Jupiter. Sorry, let me pull this up. I'm absorbing the information before I speak to it. That's right. Hold on a second. I want to hide these distracting, annoying lines. There we go. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. Oh yeah, how was the Vipassana? Did you go do that? Was that August that you were going to go do that? How did that go? Ooh. Not the relationship ending part, although we talked about that already a little bit. Yeah, okay. Oh, I have the wrong year. What am I doing? Sorry, buddy. My dingus. $85. Okay. There we go. That makes more sense. I was really confused why there's so much going on up here. Okay. Okay, so relationship ending. As I said to you before, I am hopeful that with the relationship ending that you're able to really focus on what you want with your life. And expand significantly in your creative endeavors, because that was a really big a big component of our reading, I feel. I mean, that and the other stuff we talked about. So man, this is tricky. How do I do a mini live reading for a client that I've spoken to in private without talking about any of the stuff we talked about in private? Joseph, thank you for the challenge. You fucking dick. Okay. All right. So I can focus on career. That's what I can do. Okay. So I'm actually a couple things. I am. I'm kind of I'm excited for you that Pluto's out of your 10th house, because I actually feel like it's going to, while transiting through the 11th for the next 20 years, open up significant network opportunities that can help you achieve some of those creative, overarching career goals that you have. Oh, you have Uranus opposing your Saturn and Moon right now. I know we talked about some of those symbols. So this is cool though, because this is the continuation of what we spoke about. So we spoke about the father stuff. And you, since our reading, I know you did a ton of work around those themes. And now, so we have Uranus moving retrograde, right? And actually, Uranus is going to continue, actually station direct before the end of this month. So when the sun moves to be, let me pull up the transits only. When the sun moves to be a trine away from a planet, it changes direction. Okay, so while the sun is in Capricorn, Uranus will station direct. So Uranus is about to station direct, right opposing your moon, moon Saturn combo. How that relates to career? Well, Saturn rules your 10th house and your MC. So here's the other side of what you're working on, right? You did all this amazing groundwork, all this foundational stuff. You laid down some more groundwork to kind of remove what was no longer working for you in your life with your relationship, with your marriage. Now that that's kind of out, I know you're still in the process of all of the legal side of things. That makes sense that that's still ongoing. I mean, I'm sure I've never been married or divorced, but I'm sure it's a long ass process. But anyway, that's going to take some time. So as you're working through that, laid the foundation, done a lot of the emotional work, and now it's like, okay, now that the foundation's kind of done, it's been improved and solidified and kind of reworked. The mortar's been laid, so to speak. Now Saturn's like, okay, you've done the work. Let's work on the career stuff now. So that's actually really cool with Uranus still in this opposition and about to station direct right on top of, or right opposing your 10th house lord. This is really cool because it's like, of course, there are opportunities opening up for you now. That makes sense. Especially once that planet turns direct. Right on that degree. That's significant, man. It's like those sudden opportunities kind of open up. So that's really cool. The symbolism of your 10th lord and your 4th lord, okay, for everybody so that they know what I'm talking about. Moon rules the 4th, Saturn rules the 10th. The symbolism of both of those planets being together, being the subject of this opposition, that's really cool because it's like, okay, using somebody else's resources or having access to somebody else's resources can help you to achieve both a goal that somehow combines both your career aspirations and your foundational private life property needs. So that's really cool. I hope that these like sudden like changes and reversals as far as Uranus goes are positive for you, especially since you've done so much emotional work. Like, you deserve it. So yeah, I'm really curious to hear about like what you've got in the works, what's brewing in the background, because that is that's some really cool symbolism. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, so anyway, as far as like if there are multiple things presenting to you, I would say wait until that Uranus turns direct to see which one actually lands as far as timing goes. And let me pull up the specific timing. My browser is now lagging, so bear with me here. It's like a full month. Ooh, one more week. Oh, more than a week. My bad. Okay, so February. Yeah, so come February when that Uranus turns direct. The timing of that's really cool with the sun connecting with your Jupiter. Let me move it back to the exact day. I don't remember what day off the top of my head. It was a little bit before that. There it is. So right at the end of January. Okay, that's really cool. I like that symbolism. So Uranus turns direct, opposing this conjunction of yours at the same time that there's a new moon in the 11th. That's really cool. So that speaks to me of some kind of new relationship forming that is going to help you network, specifically with people. The 11th house speaks to people that help you gain in your 10th house. So that's really cool. So yeah, Uranus goes direct on the 29th of January. So wait till the end of January, and then if there are multiple things happening right now and brewing in the background, that Uranus turning direct will be like, that's the one. Go with that one. So that's cool. Okay. Have fun with that. Feel free to message me an update. That's exciting. Okay, PK. PK. Have I looked at your chart before? I forget. I knew you were a Taurus. Okay. 927 in Connecticut. $927. Oh, Central Time. Oh. Dothan, Alabama. Cool. Okay. Brittany, Sarah, I have a couple of people ahead of you ladies, and then I'll try to get to you as well. I should be able to. Just double checking. Time 16th. Okay. Okay. Yeehaw. Okay. Oh no, I don't think I have looked at your chart before. Okay, this is cool. So, wow, zero degrees. Scorpio, Pluto, retrograde. That's wild. Directly. No wonder. No freaking wonder. Look at that. No wonder you are so heavily into the occult and research and like detailed research into the mystical and the occult and the taboo. Like that is fucking crazy. That's wild. That's a really cool opposition to have. Okay. So Pluto just moved out of your 7th house. You've had Saturn squaring off with your Uranus. Eclipses in the 10th and 4th. That's interesting. Didn't you just start like visibly podcasting and like coming out of the shadows, so to speak, to put yourself on stage? That's fun. Astrology is so literal sometimes, and it cracks me up. Okay, so let's see here. There's just too much. I have to hide it. Sorry, guys. I'm starting to lag a little bit just because I'm competing for the internet. All right, so that's interesting. An 18-degree ascendant in Cancer means that the Mars retrograde will turn direct a degree off of your ascendant. So that is something to kind of pay attention to. I can speak to that. I'm also just still marveling at the eclipses that just went through your 10th and 4th house. That's really interesting. Did you move recently as well? Or has it just been like public visibility stuff that's been changing for you? Also, have there been career changes? That would be really interesting to hear about in addition to that. Okay, so big stuff. Pluto is exactly squaring this really intense opposition that I spoke to right as I opened your chart. So that's definitely something that is speaking loudly right now. Other things that are speaking quite loudly, I mean, Uranus has been transiting over your sun. There's actually quite a bit going on in your chart right now. And then the Mars retrograde coming up will be a big one. Okay. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, eclipses on that 4th, 10th axis often bring changes to your living situation and your career stuff, or how visible you are to the public. So not surprised that both of those things happen. So that's kind of cool. But that's the past. Let's talk about the future. Okay, so let's focus in on this Pluto a little bit. So Pluto, having now moved into your 8th house, is exactly square, like applying to the minute. It's 1 minute away from an exact square to your natal Mercury. That's really significant. So as far as like language skills go, as far as your research skills go, as far as your ability to put together information and present it to the public, that is undergoing some, like, it was already deep and intense with the opposition to Pluto, but I could see Pluto squaring that as like, okay, how do I take it to another level? Or how do I access a different type of information in a different kind of way? And you might actually be experiencing like I hate using the word transformation because it's overused, but a complete transformation in like how you want to even present that information or gather that information, or you might actually also be experiencing some interesting kind of struggles with like power and control in regards to how information is used and weaponized either against you or by you. You may be confronted with this these concepts of like, okay, I have all of this power. That's the information. What am I going to do with it? Do I remain ethical with it, or do I give in to other kind of urges? These are all very Plutonian themes. And it's something that, you've already it's baked into your natal chart with the opposition. So it's not like it's a new surprising energy, but it's like, okay, you're really looking into some really dark stuff potentially. How do you kind of keep your head above the surface, and how do you should you gatekeep any of that information? I think that's a valid question. Like, there is a reason why certain pieces of information was not readily accessible in plain language for everybody to read and access. Should it remain that way? is it even okay for you to decide that? Are you dealing with maybe a battle with like the potential of like censorship? Are you uncovering things that maybe should stay covered up? Or, you know, vice versa? Are you struggling with like, I don't know, there's lots of different ways that could play out, but this general theme of like the power and control and the darkness, and seeing those themes come up in front of you is a very real potent signature right now with that Pluto. You could also just be looking at like, okay, I want to uncover more corruption. How do I do that in an ethical, enlightening, and maybe even empowering way? That's the other side of the Pluto thing, is like oftentimes when we go through a really intense Pluto transit, it can speak to feeling disempowered and then finding the power within ourselves to overcome those circumstances. So there's a lot that could potentially be going on over the course of the next couple of years while Pluto is in that exact kind of square with Mercury. And it's a long drawn out process. It's often not something that's like a one singular event. It's like a series of things that tends to happen over a period of time. Do I start a cult? No, don't start a cult. You might be in the same career, but you started a podcast. So, okay. I want to get out of the corporate world. Fair enough. Like, are you seeing some of the darker side of the corporate stuff that you don't want to participate anymore? That makes sense. Do I start a cult? No. Don't. Valid question. I mean, you could. I wouldn't recommend it. A cult of free thinkers would be funny. Oh man, always Stacy, always start a cult. Oh, that's good. One thing I will say though about the upcoming Mars, well, as Mars is retrograde and moves into your first house and then stations right on top of your ascendant degree, February, be a little bit mindful come February and like the end of February for just don't do anything stupid. Don't do dumb shit. I'm serious though. Mars retrograding through your first house can potentially bring issues with like inflammation or more accidents, and problems with like fire or burns, or like literally very, very physical things come up while Mars is retrograde in the first house. So as Mars is getting closer to your ascendant degree, because it's such a sensitive degree, I do want to say, like, seriously, be mindful, and don't do dumb shit. So like if you're if your friend's like, hey, let's go race cars, I wouldn't, I just wouldn't. I don't like tempting fate, but I mean, you do you. I wouldn't. Yeah, that's one of those things where it's like, I have this debate with myself frequently. If I say something because I see a warning sign for it, am I actually mitigating something that's meant to happen? Or is it meant to happen and I shouldn't say something? Like, I don't know. I have this debate with myself all the time. But I think that because you asked and I'm seeing it in the chart, I have an obligation to say something. So yeah, just don't do any dumb shit. I wouldn't go skydiving in February. It's probably kind of cold for that anyway. Yeah, I'm just going to open that up. because I also don't want to cause like unnecessary fear and anxiety. So let's just go straight to it. Because the other thing is there's often mitigating factors. So let's just take a look. Let's go by the week. Not too far. I freaking love the sextile from Venus. That's quite nice. That is, if there was ever a mitigating factor, that would be it. There it is. It's like great on this day. Okay. So let me just take a look at this real quick. So Saturn retrograde, or Mars retrograde, but on the ascendant. Supportive trine from natal Mars. Not really helpful. Almost exact supportive trine from natal Venus in her own temple, but under the beam, so like kind of helpful. Where's your moon? There's moon. Moon is being opposed by Jupiter. That's helpful. Saturn's past the square to the moon. That's also helpful. Transiting Venus is applying to trine the moon. That's helpful. Okay, so yeah, if anything does come up end of February, I could see it being fairly minor, especially because I do see like some pretty decent natal chart mitigating factors. Like that is such a beautiful sextile from the 11th house. Gorgeous. Yeah, just don't go skydiving at the end of February. That's pretty much it. Don't do that. And you'll be fine. Good question. So Mercury Pluto square, because it was opposing in my natal chart, would the square be easier? So I would say that because you have that energy in your natal chart, so when it comes down to it, the natal promise trumps everything. So you are already used to dealing with this. It's not even dealing with it, it's a part of who you are. You already have this energy of the Pluto Mercury opposition. It is literally baked into your DNA. So the square coming in is, I would say that the events that it's likely to bring up and unfold might be easier for you to handle because you already have that kind of energy in your chart. But it would also say that if there is anything that's kind of like latent that has to do with this natal promise, as it's called, then that's going to trigger it. So it's not even that it like, how do I explain this? Pluto is acting like a trigger. So sometimes with the natal chart, what you'll see is there might be an aspect in there that when you're younger, it doesn't make sense to you because you don't see it play out. So you don't see it. So that's why when you go and read a huge write-up from one of the free websites like Cafe Astrology or whatever, and you read all of the different things in the chart, it's like, okay, that makes sense, but I don't see that. It's because that natal promise hasn't taken place yet. Now, I would say based on the little that I know about you, this Mercury-Pluto opposition you do use on a regular basis. but it could speak to events that might not have happened yet. With the Pluto change of signs into the 8th house, activating that opposition, there could be some events that play out now that speak to that theme of Mercury and Pluto that you haven't seen previously. Does that make sense? Like, it'll carry the same archetype, but it could actually trigger like specific events that have to do with those archetypes. And you're, how else to explain it? It's like, okay, actually something that's happening right now. So that the Great Experiment just happened, right? Where that the gentleman invited people down to Antarctica to film the sun and look at the sun and actually be in Antarctica and challenge the flat earth ideology, right? Just quick example. Being that that is a community that you're a part of or at least adjacent to, this is an event that just happened that is potentially challenging and activating this Mercury-Pluto opposition of like, okay, this is a network that I'm involved in, that's the 11th house, that I'm a researcher of or adjacent to. Mercury is the research aspect. And this is something that is potentially challenging my ideas or my research, or it's adding information into that research and potentially shaking up some of the foundations of some of the people that are involved, if that makes sense. So like, that's just a little example of something that literally was just triggered, that just happened, that plays into that opposition. So on one hand, yes, it can be like having that in your natal chart helps kind of mitigate some of the intensity, but at the same time, it's like a latent thing that is being activated by this transit, and the nature of it being in the chart means that that archetype is going to play out again and again in different ways. If that makes sense. So now going forward, it's like if there are, or sorry, not if, when we have more transits to that Pluto, to that 0 degrees Aquarius point, there's going to be a continuation of those themes coming up and echoing, right? So anyway, that's the best way I can explain that. Thank you for asking the question to get me to elaborate on it a little bit. Okay. I hope that was helpful. Don't go skydiving. Okay, things we should know. All right. I saw you corrected your time, 4:10 a.m. There it is. Okay. I'll put that time in. Did you have a specific question that you wanted me to look at? If not, I will kind of just do the same thing that I did with, PK, and just kind of bring it up and see what I see. See what I see, excuse me. $19.90, eh? Alexandria. Is that like... Oh, Louisiana. There it is. Found it. Okay, yeah, for sure. You're welcome, PK. Have fun. Okay, cool. All right, let me pull up your chart and kind of just sit with it for a second. This is my first time seeing your chart too. Oh, another Cancer rising. Okay, cool. Cancer rising with moon in Capricorn. All right, let me know. Make sure that I have your chart correctly. So you were born the day before a lunar eclipse as a Cancer rising. Cancer rising, nighttime chart, day before a lunar eclipse. Okay. With an exalted Jupiter. Badass. Venus in her own deck and exalted Jupiter. You have a really powerful chart. Moon in exile. Mars in exile. Mars, Pluto, opposition. Okay, cool. Okay. Alrighty. So let's see what transits are speaking most loudly. I mean, biggest one off the top of my head would be the Mars. Oh, Neptune's right on your MC right now. Okay. That's so powerful. That's intense. Okay, so my question to you would be is that's in the 9th. How have things been going for you as far as your spirituality goes? Like, is this your first time ever talking to an astrologer? Is this something that you've been just gotten into recently, or is this like a long time study of yours? Kind of want to feel that out a little bit. Yeah. The day after you were born was the lunar eclipse. PK. Fucking guy. Okay. Oh, cool. Okay. Girlfriend astrologer. Heck yeah, that's fun. Well, okay, so that's exciting. How long have you been dating? And what was your reaction when she asked you your birth time? My boyfriend is not that brave. He's given me his time, but he refuses to sit down with me. So props to you, man. Fair enough. Okay, cool. Okay. I had to ask my mom. Yeah. It's a very real answer. That's cute. Well, yeah, like why would you need to know, right? Why would you need to know until you date an astrologer? Okay, cool. So, just a heads up, I primarily practice Hellenistic astrology. So, if your chart looks different than how your girlfriend looks at it, that's probably why, because I use a whole sign house system rather than Placidus. I don't know what she practices, obviously. So, the cool thing about different astrologers is they're all going to see and like pick out different things in a chart. And yeah, I always have fun with it. But anyway, okay, so recently cut off toxic family. So there's this really interesting thing going on in your natal chart before I talk about the transits, where the ruler of your first house represents you. Okay, so as Cancer rising, Moon represents you, and you have Moon in Capricorn, which is literally across the chart in the opposite sign. This is considered to be an exile moon. So there's this really interesting kind of symbolism playing out when you say, I just had to cut off toxic family. Well, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense to me, because you literally are going to live in some form of exile, with Moon being in exile and that being the ruler of your first house. There is also, like, with planets in exile, there's this theme that I see repeated often of like having to do something in a way that is countercultural and counter to the norm that you grew up with, especially when it has to do with a planet like the Moon, which speaks to the environment that we grew up in. So fundamentally, there is something about the environment that you grew up in that you have needed to discard and move away from in order to thrive, really. This Moon in Capricorn, right next to applying to join with a retrograde Saturn, doubly so, is like there's something about like not being able to get the kind or the amount of proper nurturing and nutrients growing up. Like now you kind of have to like become your own parent in a lot of different ways from a really young age, and teach yourself how to find structure. And even like with it being in the 7th house, there's like this additional layer of like whatever relationships you find yourself in now, they kind of help you achieve the necessary structure that you actually need to thrive in. So that's kind of cool. And like at the same time as all that's going on with the Moon, you have these like really beautiful planets in your first house, of Venus and Jupiter, an exalted Jupiter, by the way, which is fucking badass. So like you've had to remove yourself, but at the same time, like there's a lot of luck and bounty and beauty. But it doesn't come without challenges. It's being imposed by Saturn. So that's a really potent first 7th house combo. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me to hear that you've had to move away in order to like thrive and stabilize. Cool. Okay, so that's cool. So anyway, it's the biggest ones that are really kind of like standing out to me is Pluto's just moved out of your 7th house into the 8th. So that's a major relief of pressure. But then, of course, we have the Mars transit. That's probably the biggest news. So let me pull back the transits. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let me pull this back up. So spiritual growth. The reason why I'm not really speaking to that as much and why I kind of want to focus on the Mars is because this section of your chart, right at the 9th house and with your MC, this story is almost done. Like Neptune's pretty much done with your MC. It's going to be moving into Aries really quick here. There will be like one more kind of like moment where Neptune retrogrades back into Pisces, but for the most part, that story is kind of like wrapped up. And then Saturn, next spring, Saturn will be moving into Aries as well. So yeah, let me speak to that real quick. So springtime and then summer of next year, huge changes for everybody across the board. Every single major planet is changing signs. And when that happens, there is a major vibe shift culturally around the globe. So with Saturn and Neptune both moving into your 10th house, I could actually see some really massive changes happening as far as your career goes. So 10th house career is just the first and easiest word to access when it comes to talking about the 10th house. The 10th house is something that you do that you become really good at. Sometimes you become well known for that thing. Sometimes that speaks to the career that you choose. Sometimes not. I have people that I do readings for that their career is stay-at-home mom, and that 10th house, that's the stay-at-home momness, right? But anyway, so next year, spring, summer, huge changes as far as career goes as those two planets are moving into the 10th. The thing about Neptune and Saturn is that they are fundamentally very opposite energies. We have a planet that is about crystallization. That's Saturn. It is about boundaries and thresholds. Now, Saturn is actually a very mystical planet, which I won't get into that debate right now, but Saturn is actually a very mystical planet. But it is about like reminding you that you have a flesh suit, you live in the 3D, and as spiritual as you want to be, you still have to chop wood, carry water because you live on Earth. And then Neptune is a very disillusioning energy. It is very spiritual. It pays no mind, no mind at all to the physical necessities of reality. It's too far beyond that, which can be detrimental in some cases, and it can be really helpful in other cases because it can bring like spontaneous healing and spontaneous spiritual experiences, which again can be extremely destabilizing if you're not ready and you can't integrate it or you struggle to integrate it. My physical reality is reminding me that I live by train tracks and they're loud right now. Anyway, so with these two planets coming together and joining in your 10th house, I could see that being a really interesting time period for maybe experiencing some destabilization and then a restructuring of how you see yourself as a figure of authority or what kind of responsibilities you want to take on or are even forced to take on as far as your career goes specifically, because it's like Saturn joining with Neptune can be like a cold reality check. Again, sometimes it's very, very needed. And it'll be about, for a lot of people, it'll be about integrating the spiritual lessons that we've learned and finding a way to keep being that way and keep seeing things in that way and incorporate it into our physical reality with real disciplined daily action, right? Like there's a Bible verse. As an astrologer, it's very strange for me to be quoting for the Bible, but there's a Bible verse that says faith without works is dead. That's Saturn moving through your 9th house right now. What works are you doing that incorporate your faith into your daily life? And then as those things move into your 10th house, is there any kind of value discrepancy between what you do in the world and what you believe? And is there a way to kind of bring those two into alignment? That'll definitely be kind of some big themes coming up for you, I could see. Oh. Okay, so yes, I can speak to this a little bit. So the exaltation, exile, debilitation, those words speak to a condition of the planet called dignity. So each planet, each archetype, each character on the board, so to speak, has a temple. They have a home, right? And when they're in their home, they are the king of the castle, so to speak. So Jupiter's two homes are Sagittarius and Pisces. That's where Jupiter is the lord of the domain, right? In Cancer, the sign of Cancer, when Jupiter is in Cancer, he is a guest of honor. So when you have something like that in your natal chart, where you have a planet that is considered to be exalted, where it is in its sign, where it is a guest of honor, that archetype is able to do more and act in such a way that the highest good that is able to come from that planet can manifest in your physical reality. So having an exalted Jupiter in the first house literally means that you, as an individual, are able to access the gifts of Jupiter readily because they're there, they're accessible. There is one kind of mitigating thing, though, in that the owner of the temple, Moon, happens to be in exile. So on the one hand, it's like Jupiter can perform to the best of its abilities, meaning that perhaps you're very lucky, or you're able to some other Jupiter themes, you're able to you could be really fertile with ideas and creative endeavors. You could find ways to be really generous really easily, or when you're generous, things come back to you tenfold, like that kind of thing. And in the first house, it's likely that you are able to just be really healthy. Like an exalted Jupiter in the first house. Like, one thing I would say is that you need to be careful not to overeat or feed Jupiter too much, or you might struggle with weight a little bit. Especially if you are feeling like you're not getting enough with Moon exiled in Capricorn. So there is a little bit there. It's like, okay, there's a lot of positives with the exalted Jupiter, and there's a little bit of like caution that needs to be applied with Moon, the owner of the temple, being in Capricorn and exiled. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah, like if I were to sit down with you and have like a more thorough in-depth reading, it might be a little bit easier to kind of suss out exactly how that exalted Jupiter shows up in your life. But generally speaking, that's a fantastic placement. Yeah, I would just be really cautious about overindulging in things in order to like emotional eating might be a little bit of an issue. But other than that, it's like you're lucky, you're healthy, it's easier to access good health, that kind of thing. So I hope that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, so one other thing that I would say about Jupiter in particular, especially as Mars is about to retrograde back over top of these planets. So from now until February, like end of February, and then into March as Mars turns direct, one thing I would mention to just pay attention to is what kinds of things you're doing or feeding yourself, or what kind of habits you have that are counterproductive and not actually helpful. They're likely to come up as potential issues as Mars is doing his little dance through your first house. So it'll be things that cause inflammation or things that somehow are harmful at the end of the day. These are things to just kind of keep an eye on as that transit is taking place. So by the end of February, Mars will turn direct right in this part of your chart, right in your first house. And then if you have been struggling with things coming up, like, oh man, I'm eating too much sugar, or I'm drinking too much beer, or whatever the case may be, it might not be anything. It could be like, oh, I have a gluten intolerance or whatever. That time period right at the end of February would be like, okay, now I know what the problem is. Now I can cut it out and improve things tenfold. So that's just one other thing to kind of keep in mind. Okay, let's see where we're at. It is just about 2 o'clock. I've got time for one more. So I have got time for Jimit, and then actually have to call it a day. So Sarah, Brittany, I'm gonna write your guys' names down. If I decide to do this again in the next week, and you guys come back, I'll do you first. So let me find my pen. Here we go. One 13. And Brittany. Okay. Sorry about that. My mistake. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. Okay. I will not be able to get to your reading. I'm sorry. Maybe next time. Okay. Also, hello to the Netherlands. That's cool. Hey, Charlotte. Alrighty. That's neat. Two Josephs that have gone to Vipassana around the same time. That's pretty cool. Alrighty. Let's see here. So Jimit. Jimit, are you still here? $76, eh? So is that May 12th or December 5th? I'm Canadian. We write it backwards from you guys, so I have to check every time. $1976. So yeah, let me know. Is that December or May? December. Okay, cool. Thanks. Also, happy birthday. Belated. So 0 degrees Cancer rising, is that right? December 5th, 76, 6 p.m. That looks right. Yeah, Jimin, I've seen you around. I'm happy to do a quick reading for you too. Okay, let me grab this. Okay, so December 5th, 76, 6 p.m. For whatever reason, it's not. Oh, there it is. Ocean Springs. So this is really cool. This is a case where I would want to verify your birth time because it's at 0 degrees Cancer. Just a few minutes earlier would make you a Gemini rising, which would change your chart significantly. But we're going to assume the doctors nailed it and that it is 6 on the dot. Go from there. Okay. So let me just kind of absorb your chart for a second. Wow. You were born in a Neptune Cazimi. That's interesting. Mercury at the anaretic degree. So Uranus is going over another Cancer rising. That's 3 Cancer risings in one day. Y'all must be going through some things. Oh no, could be 5:30. Don't tell me that. That makes a huge difference. I'll show you. So a 30-minute difference is massive. You see the whole thing? It all changed. So if I were doing a reading with you one-on-one, what I would want to do is I would ask you a few questions to try and determine if it's Cancer or Gemini rising. So actually, maybe you could answer me this, because this is something you would see show up in relationships. As far as relationships go, have you ever been married and did you notice a pattern with relationships where there was a lot of things hidden? Were there patterns of substance abuse or things of that nature? If yes, Gemini rising is most likely. If no, then it was probably Cancer rising. Other things that you might have seen in relationships with that kind of a signature is they were either extremely spiritual, possibly militant in their spirituality, or like just extremely strong-willed in their belief system. Those would be like some main kind of themes that would be like blindingly obvious if it's Gemini rising. If it's Cancer rising, it's a totally different story. So kind of let me know. I need a little bit of feedback. Yeah. Strong-willed. Okay, okay. Is she super spiritual? Like a Neptune Kazemi in the seventh could be like she fucking channels, you know what I mean? Or she's extremely artistic, or she's really into the woo, or she's extremely Christian, or like there's something kind of extreme about how she expresses either her beliefs or it might not be beliefs. It could be is she like super spontaneous? I think you might be a Gemini rising. Is she like super spontaneous? Like there's no getting her to stick to a structure. She's extremely several things. Shout out to Jim, its wife. You an OG. Okay. I think got it, you're a Gemini rising. Okay. That's really funny. Shout out to Jim, its wife. You an OG. I bet you're a lovely person. Okay, so that's so funny. Very spontaneous. Okay. Yeah, I think I mean like for the likelihood of somebody's birth time being bang on 6:00 or like it will bang on any hour of the day is so incredibly rare. It's possible, but it's fucking rare. So most doctors round, you know, or like there's discrepancies between when something gets written down and when it actually happens. And like at the end of the day, like really doesn't matter. This is a system of divination, but because it's like right on the cusp, like, you know, I gotta ask these questions. That's so funny. All right, so let's see. She can interpret dreams. Okay. Hell yeah. She sounds like a badass. Oh no, Tarot Destroyer. No, my arch nemesis. Oh no. Just kidding. Yeah, they fail to mention that the entirety of Genesis is fucking astrology. But anyway, whatever. Okay, so let's see. So as far as transits for you right now, Jimit, let me just kind of take a moment to absorb this. Was there anything in particular that's really kind of like standing out to you that you yeah, just kidding. They're not actually. It's just and it's hilarious. But anyway, was there anything in particular, Jimit, that you really wanted me to speak to? Any area of life that's like standing out to you right now as like something that you want addressed or looked at? I mean, jokes on them. They're giving me free views. Thanks, Tarot Destroyer. You fucking numpty. Will I own land soon? Oh, okay. Okay. Will you own land soon? Have you guys been like saving up for quite a while, looking to achieve that dream of land ownership? Is that something that's been kind of in the works for a bit? Hey, Stacy. Yeah, you're welcome, Unveiled. Oh, there's a difference of opinion in which direction you want to go as far as land goes. You want like farmland or acreage land, and she wants to stay in town. Oh, I'm sorry. That's tough. Split opinions are never easy. That's difficult. Like, how do you find a happy medium? How long have you guys been married? And Miss Strong Willed over here that we talked about just a second ago, good luck changing her mind. But and do you have a house or property right now currently? Or are you like renting? I didn't mean to click that. You have have a house in town. Okay. That's mortgaged. Okay. So property in the natal chart is looked at from a few different things. The fourth house is the main kind of significator for property. The fourth house ruler, which in your case, if Gemini rising is correct, would be Mercury. And then also moon, because moon speaks to the home. All right. So in your natal chart, there's this interesting symbolism with Mercury in your natal chart where it's right on the cusp and about to change over into a new sign, which brings about the symbolism of something that is on the cusp of changing conditions. So as far as property goes, that's like the situation with property is about to change, if that makes sense. So now looking at the transits right now, so you just had Jupiter over the moon. Okay, so couple of things stand out to me right now when speaking to the question of property with your chart. So the first thing is this: the nodes of the moon are about to change into the 4th and 10th house, which means that you're about to have eclipses in the 4th and 10th house, with the north node specifically moving into the 4th. Now, this next year, there will be a couple of eclipse cycles, right? We always have 2 sets of eclipses over the course of a year. Solar and usually a solar and a lunar eclipse, sometimes more, but there's always at least 4 over the course of a year. So this next year, come Pisces season and then come Virgo season, there will be a series of eclipses in those houses. I actually could see around the time of the solar eclipses, so Virgo season next year, so around late August to early late August. while we're in Virgo season. I could see that being a time period when like the wheels are in motion to make a decision at the very least for whether you're going to go into town for another house or out. The terminology out to pasture just came to mind, but wrong terminology in this case. But oh man. Anyway, so eclipse season during Virgo, especially, wheels will be in motion for you to make the decision about which way you're going to go with it. For sure. Like, that's powerful. And let me actually just pull those up, because that will be pretty powerful. Just go to next year. Pull that up. So right here, whoop, too far. See that? Thanks, Stacy. Apparently, I'm a tranny. That's news to me. That's a good one. All right, Jimit. So that one is really significant. So you know how I just mentioned, like, hey, Mercury in your natal chart is really important when it comes to property questions, while the solar eclipse that'll be in Virgo in September 21st in particular, to be exact, rather, is in an exact square, 29 degrees, to your natal Mercury. So what this says to me, and it's actually opposing Saturn as well. So what that says to me is that that particular eclipse will be really important for laying the groundwork and either pulling the trigger and making a move, or at the very least making the final decision of like, yes, this is what we're doing, whichever way it ends up being. Now, whether it's going to be in town or a property like farm property, that is more of a horary question. So horary is not something that I am practiced with, but in the interest of trying to answer your question, I want to pull up a horary chart just to see if I can tell. So yeah, like the question of, are you moving and buying something by September? Absolutely, yes, it will happen. Whether it's going to be farmland or in town, I'm going to try and see if I can figure that out from horary. So just give me a second here to take a look at it. So question, Jimit, for the reason why you want to get out of the city, does it have to do with your and your wife's health and like questions of safety? Are you wanting to start like animal husbandry? No. Bee farm. I love that. Honey. Okay. Okay, so I'll show you what I'm looking at. A bunny ranch. Are you going to eat the bunnies or are you selling the bunnies? That's a good question. All right, so I'll walk you through what I'm looking at. I would really like that to go away. All right. So the point of a horary is to answer a yes or no question, typically. The first part of it is, will I own land, or will I own property at least? And then the second part is like, can we describe what that looks like? If yes. So you, as the querent, are represented by Taurus, and therefore Venus, and secondarily Moon. Your wife would typically be represented by Scorpio, and therefore Mars, which is down here. So the other important thing to look at with any horary is, where is the moon? Because the moon speaks to what you're feeling about a situation. So moon, in this case, happens to be with the south node in the 6th house in Libra. So this speaks to a desire to... well, it's with the south node, so hold on. So Taurus rising, you're looking for the sweetness. Venus in Aquarius, I could see hive, like beehive, with that for sure. Wanted to obtain beehive, especially like 11th house is like, you would also be looking to connect with other, what are they called? Other folks that run apiaries, other folks that have beehives. I don't know what they're called. How you're feeling about the situation is, well, with the south node, like it's like there's like a, like you're drained from even having the conversation. And in the 6th house, like it feels like an insurmountable thing to even obtain this thing. Will you actually get there? That is, I don't think I'm practiced enough to be able to answer that. If it were like a contest, you would win the contest. It's like some form of reasoning, or somehow you'll need to appeal to her, either her sense of adventure or her, maybe you'll need to bring in some kind of arguments about the need for taking care of your collective health, right, between the two of you. Or like if you want to get to the point of having land rather than having a house in town, there's got to be something in there about like being able to show her some like picturesque beauty, and like show her how actually interconnected you're going to be with the farming community. and how that can actually improve your lives, going about it in that kind of a way is probably your best bet for landing on it being like in the country rather than in town. Because I could see like there's like the fear of being isolated, or the fear of like not being able to have all of the security needs met in some fashion. I could see that being kind of a factor. So like really you're going to need to ask her like why, what is the main underlying reason for wanting to stay in town, and address those fears and those needs. And if it's something about like, well, I'm not going to have any friends, well, you're going to make friends, especially if you have honey. Do you know how many people want local honey? Fucking everybody. And farmers have an amazing sense of community. It's just about like being open and being able to plug into that community. It's possible. Yeah, I could figure it was kind of a yeah, and like ultimately, especially if there's a like the feeling of not being safe, like have some ways to address those feelings of like needing security. And like it's going to be totally dependent on like how she's feeling about it, because as the man in the relationship, that's part of your role, right? Providing safety. So yeah, that's how I would go about answering that kind of problem with her. But yeah, as far as time frame goes, like seriously, this eclipse is really powerful and really potent for answering the question of like the when, for when things are going to really take place. So by September, this is a potent seed being planted in regards to property specifically, and making a really big monumental change in your lives. That'll be a really important one. So September, definitely check for that or watch for that. Okay. All right, my friends. Thanks for hanging out for a couple hours. That was lots of fun. Old World Big Mac, you missed it. But yeah, I hope you guys had fun, and I hope that was helpful for those of you that were able to get readings. I'll be around. Yeah. Make sure that if you guys want a personalized one-on-one reading that you book with me, yeah, website should be linked down below, so you know how to get at me. Thanks, club. It's not easy doing those live like on the spot, but I hope that I was of service, and that was the whole point. All right, happy solstice, you guys. It only goes up from here, so all right, peace out. Bye.